Guys, Modern Craftsman, Monday. We got Jonathan Ward from Icon 4x4 back on the podcast this week. We open up the conversation with AI,
Yeah. He
and
came in he came in hot.
he came in hot. And I'm not going to tell you whether or not we used AI to do this podcast or not. I mean, I think you'll be able to figure that out pretty quickly. But AI, how it's how it's impacting all of our lives, and then our business. But then we dig back into his business and how his role has changed since last time we had him on 2.5 years ago. I think was the time
Yeah,
frame.
it was in, October of 2020, so, like, 6 months into COVID.
So how his role has changed, how he is now taking more opportunity to explore. I think he said these like dying crafts essentially, but literally rattled off like a handful of different countries, all to go and dig into like really specific trades. One of them was like classic shoemaking,
Yeah.
and I forget where that. I think that might have been the U.S. Either way, point is, another great conversation with Jonathan. He's got a tremendous brand at Icon, and we dig into that and what it means to build brand equity, what it means to build a business that is so focused on producing the high quality, the highest quality result, and doing that with less of a focus on the P&L, and how he's battled through that.
Yeah, I think a lot of you listeners will be able to relate to what Jonathan's doing. He's creating art and trying to build a business around that. And if you are cut from the same cloth, you understand the struggles associated with that. So it's just still, at 53 years old, trying to figure out how to make a business profitable when you are looking to do the absolute best work. I know that's something that I struggle with, Nick struggles with, and I'm sure a lot of you struggle with. So, um, definitely give it a listen. Hop online. Let us know what you think. Share it. Spread the word. Give us some reviews. Thank you to everyone for all the support.
And before we get into the episode, this podcast, thanks to our sponsor, Andersen Windows.
Have you ever installed a pivot door? Andersen is telling the story of one epic pivot door install on their ProViews blog. Get an overview of the basic steps plus a few tricks on how to locate the door pins and adjust the closer box. Find this story and other experiences from the job site on andersenwindows.com.
This podcast is also brought to you by Buildertrend. Do your clients constantly bother you asking you for updates on their project, or do you feel out of the loop on what's happening at the job site? Say no more.
Daily logs with Buildertrend are the solution. They're a written history of everything that's happened on the job site and an easy way to keep clients informed of progress.
And if you're not familiar with Buildertrend, it's leading construction project management software for builders and remodelers. Their goal is to calm the chaos in your construction business so you can run your jobs and stop letting them run you.
To see Buildertrend's daily logs in action and learn how they can help you improve communication with your team and clients, go to buildertrend.com/mcdemo.
Dude, the AI stuff is crazy.
Dude, I've been
Like,
doing a deep dive in like the last month in mostly podcasts, but also a
mhm,
book and a couple written reports and articles. Holy fuck, amazing, but in a very scary way. Like
very,
it
yeah.
could solve the world's problems, but I think more likely it's going to create fucking chaos and wars and fucking serious problems. Already video evidence in U.S. courts gone. So
They've
now we're back
removed
to
it.
witnesses, and we know how good they've always been.
They've removed it because of AI,
Well, they're saying could be
or it could
AI.
be
That's
altered or
that's the
whatever.
new way of getting it rolled out. Did you see that one that posted just today that a bunch of big verified accounts picked up and started running with, and it was creating a little bubble of chaos. It was a AI video of a missile strike landing adjacent to NIC or one big national security campus. Like, imagine some asshole post Putin saying, you know what, enough of you guys, fuck you.
Right.
Cut to missiles launching. Like, people are going to react. People don't
Well, it's
stop and
like
breathe.
it's what's scary is like you think about the older generation where, they're still falling for the scam when they get a pop-up that says you
The
just wanna
prince. No, it's
you
like
no,
the Prince of Egypt
no,
is calling you.
forget the prince, but, like, you just want a trip to the Caribbean, all expenses paid, fill out your information here. It's like, they're still falling for that, never mind a
Happened
deep
to my
fake
dad.
on
My
video,
dad,
like,
when his health was failing towards the end last year, he got scammed for like 8 grand. And like
it's
he's a litigator. He's like a well-known, skilled, intelligent lawyer. But they just
Jonathan, you said something a minute ago that, like, my brain is, like, firing on all cylinders right now when you said podcast. I'm like, "Holy shit, we could actually have a podcast completely automated." We could remove Tyler and I could be completely removed, and we can just generate an episode
so
completely through AI.
Lex did that as a test, and he was floored. He's like, "Oh fuck!" Like
Yeah.
even interactive, two AI individuals
Mhm.
debating, like, holy shit.
We had Doug was like, "Hey, I wanna try out this new software. Can you just record something for me?" And I was like, "Sure." And so it was like I forget, it was like a sentence, and based on that sentence, it could then take my voice and create it to say anything.
They're saying next week's new Apple update does that, and your phone's going to be able to speak in your cadence and vocal tones, and
That's
you don't have a
nuts.
fucking choice. Like, well, why do I want that? Well, it's not really an option. It's just hap- even fucking PowerPoint, which is like a dinosaur. I usually use Keynote, but for whatever reason, I clicked on PowerPoint for like a color materials review for a client. And holy shit, the like I just entered in one source image. It was a rendering of the vehicle, one color palette option, and 3 words of text. And boop, side panel pops up and created like 10 design variations based on the source info I fed. And
Mm.
like 7 of them were really fucking good. I'm like, I just grabbed it. Like literally, the color has the vehicle I uploaded into it has like color breaks down the side. It took the text I entered, saw those elements, recreated them in like a ghost to fade out background behind my text, and colorized the text font to match the third color.
Who Nick, who was it us that we were talking to somebody about how they set up somebody playing a computer that game Go or whatever, like the ancient Chinese game,
Mm-mm.
and they basically developed an algorithm, and it's apparently the most complex game, like board game to man that man has ever created, and the computer was playing somebody who's like a whiz at this game, and yeah, and like the computer made a move that, like, for all intents and purposes, nobody who understood the game would ever make this move, because it's just like there's certain moves you do and this is one that you would not, and the computer did it, and everyone was like, what is the computer doing? Like, it's going to lose now. This can't beat a human in this game. And then like 3 moves later, it came back to that move and ended up beating the person, and it's all through AI and through the computer. And like it was the type of move that like the human brain couldn't even comprehend why they were doing it. It looked like they were shooting themselves in the foot. I feel like we talked about that wasn't us on the podcast. We spoke about
I
that.
don't think so.
I
I
heard
forget.
Lex Freeman talk about that story. Maybe you heard it if
Yeah.
you follow Lex.
I don't know where I heard of that. I mean, it must have been on a podcast
I
then.
think
It's
if it doesn't make us step on our dinosaur dicks altogether, I think power to the craftsman, power to blue
yeah.
collar. Honestly, like finally, maybe our educational system and government will stop criminalizing blue collar, as I say, because like doctors, lawyers, CPAs, a lot of the career paths that were what you were supposed to do, they're fucked. Like, they're
Yeah,
fucked.
I mean, CPA is a great example. Like I can open the AI, I can type in, "Hey, give me a tax strategy," but before you do that, ask, the questions about my business that you need to know. And I used it yesterday 'cause, I follow all these, like these Facebook groups that talk about it, and it's the key behind it is if you know how to, like, you have to know how to prompt it. If you can prompt it, in a way like you can prompt it in ways that just give you generic responses, but if you learn how to prompt it,
Yeah,
it
the
can
whole
give you
art to
really
it. Yeah.
detailed. And I
Which
I ran it the other day, and I said, "Hey, I own this home building company, and I would like you to write a marketing strategy for the next year for me. But before you do that, ask me as many questions as you want to understand who I am as a business, and I will answer them." And it asked me, like, I don't know, 11 or 12 questions. I answered them. It said, "Thanks for the info. Here's how I would break out my marketing. This is where I put my money. This is how I would strategize the entire plan." And you could do the same thing with taxes. And you're right. I mean, truthfully, I think that we are on the other side of the blue collar criminalization, as you say. But I think that this will continue to speed that up.
yeah, one of my sons, my youngest Quinn, is studying mechanical engineering, and he was telling me how many of his friends are using it for all their assignments and literally not even plugging in.
Yeah.
And one kid, the chat GBT or whatever the hell he used, he just cut and paste and dumped the whole thing, and that's what he handed in his report. The very first sentence on it said, "I'm not really able to answer that question correctly, but here's the best I can do." And then the teacher busted his ass, but they didn't kick him out, nothing, and like they didn't even comb back to previous reports to
Yeah.
realize he's always been doing it. But apparently there's a new, like, a scrubber software where you
Yeah.
can cut and paste in, and you can ask, "Did you write this?" Like ChatGPT has that function for educators. They'll be like, "Yep, I wrote that for IP address blah 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 on this date."
Yeah.
So if teachers wake up, but I mean, you think about legislation and regulation, they're using fucking dictaphones. They don't even know how to use a computer. I mean, look at what they did with Zuckerberg. Like, really? And we're
I
hoping
know.
they're going to step in and regulate and keep this in line.
What is the scariest part is this is like very new, and it's evolving insanely fast. And there, I think that, like, going back to your point about blue collar, I do think that what's going to happen is that there's going to be this really divide of, like, loving handmade and accepting the automation of the other option. Where it's like, yeah, like, soon cars will be built and there won't be a single human being in the factory. Where it's like, but you could all, like, and you can buy it for $20,000 because it's so efficient with material, or you can spend $120,000 and you're paying for the craft, similar to how art is appreciated. We've talked about that before.
Yeah. But
But
I
you
think
win.
step
You
further
win.
back,
Yeah,
step
go ahead.
further back, unless Andrew Yang is running the show and everyone gets money for nothing, how are people going to be consumers if their career paths vaporize? So for all these
Yeah,
efficiencies we're going to gain at the cost of mankind's sense of purpose or income, like that's like the further I step back from it after doing a bunch of research, that's where I go like, I don't have an
yeah.
answer for that. It's weird.
There's a great video that circulated recently, and it was this guy, like, selling the first refrigerator. And this guy walks up and he's like, "Why would I buy that?" He goes, so you can store the food that you get." And he's like, "And how do I, like, and what am I supposed how am I supposed to pay for that? Like, I have to buy that?" He goes, "No, you don't buy it, you lease it from us." I'm going to do a bad job explaining it, but the video goes on to basically show the start of, like, when we were required to work. Like, for a long time, we didn't work for the in the exchange, for the exchange of money to then go and buy things. We worked to survive, right? We made trades and stuff like that, but we worked to survive. And then it was like, then we started commercializing everything. And then all of a sudden I needed this refrigerator because then my food lasts longer, but I only can lease it. So now I have to work to lease the refrigerator. And then it goes on to evolve. And it was
Oh,
just,
totally. Like today, I can commiserate when I'm hiring a mechanic, a technician, a fabricator, whatever. cost of living, cost of goods, obviously fucking bad shit. And LA,
Mm,
extra large bad shit. But also what we need now, the amount of things that we now have been conditioned culturally
right,
to need,
right.
$300 a month cable bill and your fucking car payment, your insurance for the fact that your insurance is fucking worthless, and on and on and on. And it's like, it's just it's everything's been so monetized, in such a capitalistic angle that, like, how I'm with you, like that runway's got to be running out because already the math is broken, and it's like, it's a weird time. Like, isn't it interesting? Like a year ago, this wasn't even a concern.
No,
Today,
it's like, oh,
is like,
AI is going to take over. It's like, what's AI?
right. Like today, my biggest concern would be the potential of AI over things I was worrying about 6 months ago. Even now, are like, well, that's not even a fucking problem.
There, so
Don't worry
so
about
yes,
that.
yesterday, a high school in in my state, very close to us, had a active shooter warning go out. And my wife texts me like in a panic. Wasn't like our kids don't go to that school, but thank God. But God bless the kids that did. And I'm like, holy shit, this is home now. It hasn't been home before, and now it's home. And I came home and I'm like, what's going on? She goes, apparently it was AI. Someone prompted AI to put in an active shooter claim, and it happened at two schools simultaneously, and they deemed it false. I'm like, what the fuck,
Right, and the
man?
fact that there's no filter to prohibit that from ever even getting distributed in the first fucking place is another sign to the regs. You guys are gonna make me get drunk. Hey, before we get
You
all,
wouldn't be the first.
yeah.
You would
Hopefully,
What's
we
not.
could salvage it though.
how your business is doing, how your family's doing, and how's your podcasting empire doing?
Us
Business is good. It's since 2 years ago, things have changed. The housing. I mean, when we spoke, it was October of 2020 last time we spoke. So, uh, 6 months into the pandemic, I would assume, or a year. When was the pandemic?
Mar
2019
February,
March.
yeah. No, 20.
or
February of 20
2020?
is when it
Yeah,
Yeah, so we were like
February.
6 months into that. Obviously, interest rates have gone through the roof. There's not a ton of availability on the housing market. Work's just been crazy busy. Family is pretty good. Everyone's getting older. There's less time with kids and everything else. And podcasting, I feel like, has been pretty enjoyable.
good.
Yeah.
Is it making you guys any money yet, or is it still just enjoyable and good for spreading you guys?
We started making a little bit of money with it and finally putting people into place to capitalize on that moving forward. It's still not our
But
main
you
source
you
of
you, you took
income.
in an external ad generation partner, whatever they call them.
Yeah, we have people producing it. Doug from Nick's team is producing it, and we have people lining up sponsorships and partnerships
They just get
and
a cut, but
looping.
it takes it off your plate, right?
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
Matt Farah is
that was the
stoked.
first step.
Matt did the same thing a little while ago, and it made a huge difference for him, both in bandwidth. He was never comfortable doing it, and it's something like man something, and the agency, that's all they do is,
Yeah,
like, if you have male focused demographic, they line up the ad partners like that's their niche, and he was really happy with the way that panned out.
that's
Who is
cool.
that?
Matt Farah, he's got it's called the Smoking Tire, big
Oh,
YouTube
okay.
channel and big podcast.
Got it.
How about you? I know last time we spoke with you, your wife was sick.
Yeah, she's what a shit show. She's all good now. We, in fact, last fall went to Italy for a pretty big grand trip plan to celebrate a year of being cancer free.
That's good.
Yeah, and then on day two, we went to visit a friend in Isla de Alba near Livorno. Go out on his boat. We got in a freak boat accident. My wife was up front on the boat, broke her back, broke her shoulder,
No.
which then turned a 3 week trip into a 4 week trip, canceling everything we thought we were going to do. And, like, we were in this fucked up hospital. COVID was going batshit on the island. The hospital was locked down. They wouldn't even talk to me, wouldn't let me go in. Like I slept in the gravel parking lot that first night, calling connected friends in the States, like people that like Halliburton level triage government NGO kind of bullshit. Because I knew like he had the skill set, like, okay, we need to have a spreadsheet. If it's just this, we'll do this. If it's this severe, we'll do that. Had a fucking jet on standby in Germany. Ended up through networking, friends of friends, borrowing a friend's, paying for it, but borrowing an F1 team's badass helicopter to fly in a brace to allow her to be transported, got her on the helicopter through another connection, got us checked in Milan to a proper hospital, checked my ass in as well because I was recovering, but I had my knee replaced, so I was still with a cane. So we exaggerated the documents so she wouldn't be stuck in a foreign hospital by herself. And she ended up having to have back surgery there. And we ended up making it fun somehow. But 3 weeks couldn't fly post op. And she's fully recovered from all of that. But it's just like, what the fuck? Like, what next world? And then my dad died. It's just like the last 3 years, just so much shit. But like, stepping back from it, like I think we had discussed from cancer, like life-changing perspective, check yourself, moments of beautiful clarity as to like, why are we here and how should we spend our time?
Yeah.
So it's odd, like the spouse, me, I've retained that much deeper than Jamie. She's back on the treadmill and working her ass off, and I'm more like, let's get the fuck out of here. Like, let's go travel. Let's go explore new cultures. Let's learn new shit. Like, let's spend more time together. Let's build the fucking house. That kind of thing. But I
When you,
keep encouraging.
Jonathan, when you think about traveling now, like, and the way you said that makes me think that you probably wish you traveled more when you were younger. Is that
Oh, I traveled like a motherfucker. I've been to 43 countries in my life. So
so?
I
What
stopped
is it?
with the
Is this a
company and kids.
Got it.
Stopped this for a while, and we started traveling again. But like when I was younger, like single younger, I'd be gone like 2 or 3 months out of the year,
Sure.
and like not in fancy pants resorts bullshit, but like
No.
in a culture. And
What
that's done so much for me. I want to fire that up more.
and when you pause it for the business and the kids, do you think like back? Do you think about that now that you could have traveled during that time, or do you feel as though it was the right move?
I think it was the right move. Um, I both, we traveled a bit with the kids. We took them on some key eye-opening trips that I think now they're 24 and 21. But I think like established a healthier perspective for them in life.
Mm,
And then the business, it was just too, it was too much demand, and I didn't have a master alliance. I didn't have a team, so it was just us running it, or shit was fucked up. So it really wasn't an option. Not to mention having no capital because I was pissing every dime right back into the company.
yeah.
But now my work ethic's gone to hell. I'm here maybe a day and a half a week. I'm taking classes and learning shit, starting a new brand in the fall, doing some tutoring, and kind of subtly rebalancing my life, which I've really enjoyed.
What
What are you going back to school for?
Just like not a full curriculum, but like going to Art Center in Pasadena. I have always MacGyvered my way through Illustrator, any Adobe product suites. Um, so I've been getting certified in that just to learn like things I MacGyver did that took me a half hour can be done in like 2 fucking prompts.
Yeah.
And then drafting for apparel design, how to design and make patterns, um, shit like that. Then like I've got a class. I had a class 2 weeks ago. I went up to Berkeley for a week to study with Nigel Armitage, who's like the leather box maker for the Queen, like old school traditional structured hand stitched shit. Because it's like, why not? Be a cool thing to do a deep dive in, and then dragging Jamie with me, going to Minnesota in the fall to Hark Weber, who's like a genius traditional shoemaker, to start studying that art more, and just mostly creative shit. like lost arts and like a couple trips on my hit list overseas that would all be based on deep diving a particular craft. So indigo and mud dyeing in a remote killer studio up in the mountains in northern Japan. And then there's a class in Florence I really want to take to expand my leatherworking skills, and another one in Milan for I've been making a shit ton of jackets. Um, so yeah, mostly self-fulfilling shit like that, you know.
And it when so I know last time we spoke obviously a lot about Icon. You were getting going with putting out watches, and I've seen you do a fair amount of leather work recently. Is all of that, like you just said, self-fulfillment and just gratifying to you?
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
have you put things in place within the business to be able to do those things because it's just a passion of yours right now?
Well, I think I became aware that I wasn't feeling as fulfilled as I used to, probably because of the clarity gained through the traumas in life and
Yeah.
experiences in the last several years compressed. That here I'm in my office or I'm directing humans. In the old days, here meant the music was turned up to 11. I was in the back panel beating and welding and building cars and designing and hands on. And I realized that as the company has grown, the skill set of my lovely team is greater than mine was. So I'm not really of any great value to get out there and be doing that. It really is the responsible move to be managing product planning and marketing and sales and build sheets and color palette and design theories and stuff for clients, especially in the one-offs. But at the same time, that's not why I got into it. I got
Yeah.
into it for all senses, brain, hands, smell, sight, like everything focused. And leatherwork specifically, I would have done woodwork, but I didn't have room to rebuild my old wood shop like I used to have at the house. So leatherwork is a great example of I don't need to go anywhere or rely on anyone. I can go from a dumb idea to a sketch to a done product all single-handedly. And there's something
Mm.
super zen about not just the beauty of the tools, but the simplicity of the analog process that, like how you edge something, you can spend years just deep diving just the edge work and the techniques and the styles. So that kind of shit, as you guys know, right up my alley.
So your leather work is a very distilled down version with traditional methods and tooling. It's not like a very sophisticated leather working operation. Like you're looking to do things by hand.
Yeah, I've finally given in and bought some significant machinery at the house, but I think for the most part, even if you look at high-end luxury leather goods these days, most of it is bullshit through the veneer of marketing.
Yeah.
So people have been trained to think certain leather is luxurious because it is absolutely perfect when you look at it. It might as well be vinyl. Or worse yet, the new eco-friendly leather alternatives of mushroom or cactus and shit. No one wants to talk about the fact that they use a fuck ton of water and they're lab grown and backed in petroleum based products. So there's so much bullshit. I think part of my idea is to, and I'm gonna actually like TLC and Icon started as hobbies and passions, and grew into businesses. Same thing is now happening with the leatherwork. So I've, through Icon, commercially released 3 limited edition jackets for now. And then in the fall, I'm going to launch a standalone full leather goods brand with, bags, wallets, flasks, and outerwear. And I think my challenge there is I'm going to have to do a lot of education and poking modern brand, big brand luxury right in the eyeball and explaining to people like what traditional luxury really is versus the bullshit they've been upsold on. So that either means the brand will kill it or won't go anywhere. Fortunately, I have the luxury to like, I'm kind of okay with either. My ego, of course, wants it to become something crazy. But even if it stays small, at the end of the day, it could pay my overhead whenever I finally get to build my ranch, then kick ass. You know what I mean? But it's
Do you,
fulfilling. But see, that transitions, that's commercially manufactured. So I'm
but
going to stay in my happy little home studio and design and draft and tech pack all the prototypes. Then once it goes to production, my jackets are made in LA and all my leather goods are made in Italy.
do you lose the sense of fulfillment and joy that you get out of doing it once you start to grow though? Like, is that a concern for you? Because it's got to be very similar to why you got, and it's a story that is dime a dozen in our industry, where you start your business because you enjoy what you're doing, and then you have to grow it and you have to step away from what you enjoy doing, and then it gets to a point where you're putting people in place, managing people, and you've lost sense of why you did it in the first place. Are you afraid that that's going to happen with the leather work, that if it becomes that successful and you have to step back and start putting in people in place, that you're going to lose what you enjoy so much about it right now?
That's a great question. I honestly feel that I'm more concerned about the potential of that happening with Icon than I am with the
Yeah.
leather goods. And explain that. I mean, I love what I do here. I'm passionate about it, but I am like a stereotypical mad scientist, creative goober. I'm not a people manager and a spreadsheet analyzer. Now, I've addressed that mostly at Icon by building a wonderful team of people with varied skill sets that I frankly do not have, and nor do I want to have anything more than great faith in people that are part of my master alliance being good at, and let them do what they do well. I just think, as you know, right now for Icon, the next level means we should move out of California to achieve the next multiple of significant scale, because the business environment here is so dysfunctional. Do I want to move the company? I really don't. So my happiest place within the company, where I'm of most value, is going to be in the one-offs that we build, but they're really not a great revenue model. We hardly clear 5 points on them, and they can, each single project it takes several years to get done. So as we're staffing back up after COVID, and demand is nice and high for our production models, which are a more viable business, I'm the least valuable guy there, other than communicating the product and working on the options and design with the client. And it's irresponsible for me to, as we still have holes in our crew, it's irresponsible to put them in the derelict and reformer one-off program until the other programs are as populated, scaled, and efficient as they can be to take care of the bottom line before the one-offs. So like, we only have two people on dedicated, not engineers and electricians, but two dedicated techs in that one-off division. And we have multiple year backlogs. So like, I can't even responsibly take deposits or commit to new orders. So I've already done all my renders and design work for the projects, 3 or 4 years into the future. So either I'm twiddling my thumbs trying to look busy and disrupting things that are flowing best without me, or I'm finding other outlets and other things
Mm.
that can plant seeds for new ventures and new brands.
Yeah,
Kind
and
of
that's something that we had spoke about last time, when you're doing those truly custom projects, that there's so much time put into the engineering and the designing for the life cycle is one product. Like, there's no amortizing those costs throughout the life cycle of many different, or a production model car, right? You're learning and creating systems and tools specifically for one vehicle that you probably will never use again. And people see the price tag on a car like that and they say, well, that's, yeah, how could you not make money doing that? And it's like, if you look at the amount of hours that go into that, it's
thousands of
not just
hours.
hands
Yeah,
on a vehicle, that it comes down to being pennies. But at the same time, those are the jobs that get you the work.
correct. And they're what show our entire DNA of what defines our brand. And there's a lot of techniques, be it new 3M products that we test on them before production, that then find their way into the rest of the line. There's new techniques, new powertrains, different design language. So it's good that it's, we call it D&R. In reality, it's kind of client-funded R&D. So it's a value, but it's not like, we're not Volkswagen where they're happy to lose 6 digits per Bugatti they sell
Yeah.
and write it off as the glory. I have to make a business sense of it. But conversely, I'm trying to learn all those lessons, and it may be fair to call them mistakes. Like, I protect Icon like a lunatic, like a mad dog. I protect the passion and the integrity of the brand, sometimes at significant financial cost, by turning down collaboration or a limited edition with a new car company because it gets watered down by focus groups and marketeers and bullshit, and it really isn't honest for the brand. Because, as we had talked about in the past, I'm all about, like, I want this to be a legacy brand. I hate the overused term, but like, in 50 years, if someone sees an Icon at a car show or something, I want them to know what it stands for.
Yeah.
So now I look at the leather goods brand and I'm like, all right at the beginning, do I staff up, tool up, and train up? No, not in this business environment. I don't think there's a case that can be made, unfortunately, in many industries to do that. And unfortunately, or fortunately, in my opinion, but I am somehow generally focused on dying arts-based skill sets. So
Yeah.
I think this time I'm trying a different route where I'm very passionate about the design and the development, and I'm going to own that, protect that like a mad dog. But I am going to sublet the manufacturer. And I had samples done in many countries, including the US, which were pathetic. They're honestly the worst of anywhere. It's really sad. The top leather goods manufacturer, in fact, in the US, when I sent them my deck and a physical sample, they're like, nah, we're not going to quote on this. And I'm like, well, why not? They're like, oh, you want like craftsmanship? Like, no, like we want to like click it, stitch it, and ship it.
Yeah.
Wow. And
So
Italy, hands down, blew everyone out of the water. Surprisingly, not just in the quality of the work, but in the open-mindedness. Like, the finishing technique that is principal to my line is an edge burnish. No one does it hardly anymore. Everyone's edge painting because it takes 5 seconds, runs through a machine. Edge burnish takes traditional tools and wax and technique and skill and practice and time. And then I'll own everything up to building the first 10 or 20 for friends and family, and occasionally sell stuff on IG. And then once it goes to production, then I'm going to manage the fulfillment, etc. So in a perfect world, that company, even at relative scale, has a wholesale manager, a marketing manager, a shipping department, and that's it.
So a question that I had for you that was somewhat regarding a different topic, but I feel is more appropriate at this point. It was with regard to Icon, but I think that it can transcend into your leather goods company. And I'm not even sure if you'll be able to answer this, but do you feel like what's more important to you, the business or the art, or are they
The
not
art. I'm a
independent
total
of each
moron.
other?
I'm a total moron. It's always been the art. It's always
Yeah.
been being proud of what we create and what we inspire. Having said that, now I'm 53 and I'm starting, again with the just challenges of life as you get older. And I'm like, oh shit, I haven't been listening. I've been listening to the creative parrot on this shoulder. I have not acknowledged the capitalist one. And I live in a capitalist culture, and I want financial comfort in the future. And I'm comfortable, but I'm not a wealthy man. People think I'm like flying around on a jet and living the wildlife. I'm like, no. But at the same time, I am starting to try on that hat a little bit more and listen to those advisors of, like, for example, Icon has incredible brand equity because I have said no to so many things that I felt weren't authentic. So how do I cash that in? How do I scale without losing the integrity? And I think with my ethics, there's a lot of constrictions on the maximum P&L potentials. So that's why I am exploring those, but with this new brand idea, kind of at launch, it's definitely still rooted in the passion of the art, but it's also it's also thinking about the future or an exit strategy, or like making the brand narrative such that it's honest and it's disruptive, but if I keep it for the rest of my life, party on, great.
Hmm.
If it becomes an acquisition target because LVMH wants more manly American historic honest base luxury products, then great. Fuck it, take it. Like let
This
it
is
flip,
the
take the multiple. Versus with Icon, I'd have a very hard time doing it. It would
Yeah.
have to be a very special partner. And I think I definitely would still want some chips on the table if I sold Icon to make sure I'm protecting its future and its
Well, that's due to
longevity.
that's due to the whole legacy that
Right.
you're speaking of as
Which is
well.
right. I think you guys experience that too. It's kind of a
yeah.
conflict if you're a business. Like
That's exactly what I was just
you
gonna
turn
say. I
down
feel
the
like
ugly ass house you're asked to build. It's an $8 million contract. You can get all your guys busy for 18 months kicking it
right.
out, and it's hard to say no.
It's
But it
and
eats
I
your soul if you say yes. So
right, but I think that's the conundrum a lot of people in, are like in construction, automobile, building, any of this craft oriented career or any of these craft oriented careers. And it for me specifically, I think constantly about brand equity and, building brand equity and, and developing this desire to want something so bad that they'll wait any amount of time. And I hear you talking about having a 3-4 year wait list. I think about Nick's handmade work boots up in Spokane. They have. I bought a pair of their boots. I ordered them. They told me it was 8 months for until the time I got them, and they were handmade. And they're
I just did the
like
same thing with Stallion boots in El Paso. You know
and
Brian the bootmaker Roll Club? He's got
I
like a
don't.
2 year wait list.
But
But it's
my
one dude in his happy space
I know
making each pair.
and there's like and at that moment, right, where it's like you think about the capitalist side of it, it's like if you have a 4-year backlog, dude, scale up, double your shop, bring that down to 2 years
But
and
see, it
go
depends on
sell
the
100
product.
more.
Like
And
I've been telling friends and like a very successful shoemaker friend of mine, and he's like a lunatic about he has one helper. It's a family. That's it. He's like, that's it. But at the same time, he's like, oh shit, my rent just went up. My wait list is 2.5 years. I just got offered this killer opportunity and I can't take it, and my costs are rising, and I'm just working my ass off. And I love what I do, and I've protected that, but I'm not getting anywhere in protecting my family's financial future. And I'm like, okay, it's time for an alt one. Get your ass down to Leon, Mexico. I'll help you go to some of the best boutique makers and come out with Nick's tricks instead of Nick's boots or whatever it is. That is slightly more commoditized, but respects your core ethics and build a team to run that and pimp that. So you have both. You have your protected line and you
yeah,
have the other. But I think at core, right, a lot of us creative brain people don't even get far enough down that thought process to theorize that. And even me telling my friend to do that, I wanted him for 2 years to do that. And he's like, oh, but I don't even know that world and I don't know how I'd finance it. Until finally, a mutual friend, a good client of his, is like, dude, I'll put this together. I'll fund it, take a small piece of it. Now he's doing it. But it's like
mhm,
same here for Icon. I think our scalable potential is tremendous. But at the same time, the perceived efficiencies of scale in this complicated industry, the math of at what point of scale would the efficiencies make it through to a lower price product of a comparable margin? Like
but
it doesn't work. The
but do you all
scale
but
you
you
would need, you'd have to basically just sell the name and the aesthetic, and I'd have to whore out, I think, the things that are important to me to an extent I'm not willing to. So I
Yeah.
think we could double, we could triple with the right partner and the right physical location, but I'd honestly be more inclined to somewhat divest and like I could see myself telling, lawyer team or whatever, whoever wants the brand and sees opportunity from their perspective. I could totally see me saying, oh, you know, these derelicts and reformers, they're a shit show. They're not profitable. They're not scalable. I'll keep those. You know, and then I turn that shit into like omakase style build, small crew on my ranch, build what I want to build and explore the tech I want to do, and then put it up at a high profile auction at Pebble Beach in the fall, leveraging Icon and my
Mhm.
reputation in the industry. And I can make that viable and back to the purity from a me's, you know, self-fulfilling sense. Um, that I could see.
Do you think you could sell your product at a higher price point?
I do like the one-offs. As the wait list has gotten so obtuse, and I'm clearing 5 points. I'm realizing, okay, even just to talk my wife and my COO and my management team into it, like, well, then we have to raise the labor rate or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the margin, or like do it like a GC with disclosed margins per subcontractor, sublet, etc., and cost plus on content. So that is in the plans. Problem is, I'm already committed to wonderful people that I've already given,
Sure.
you know, parameters to build costs, and I can't change on them because that ain't cool. A, B, the reality of the economy and the supply chain and material costs has already changed enough to impact it enough that I feel guilty how expensive shit is. But any of the pending new orders that I'm not really taking, not taking deposits, when I give people full disclosure of what I think it's going to cost and when I can start and how long it'll take, and they're like, hell yes, sign me up. Just reach out whenever you're ready. I'll send you the car. I'm flagging those. So yeah,
Yeah.
I think for that I'd have to. I think for the production models, it would be hard to do that because the catch 22 of our success being arguably the first tards that created this whole segment in essence that now is really blossomed. It's a whole subculture in automotive collecting and using and whatever. Now it's hard because there are so many other brands that launched just because we were in the market, and they're like, oh, well shit, you know, I sent in a submission to them, I did their configuration, and I got the reply back, and they want 300 grand to build that, and they said I'd have to wait 3 years. Like, shit, let's do that. So then they come to market and they go, yeah, we're just like Icon, but we're faster and cheaper. And then over time, some of them are successful enough, they're like, we're just like Icon, we're faster, but we're more. So I've created my own competitors
Mhm.
by being so hell bent on protecting the core of the product and by the constraints of viable, significant scale.
So
So, you know, it's
what
like a catch 22.
Yeah.
what is your legacy? Because I think at the end of the day that is critical in defining where you want to be, because if it's scaling, making money, and the business end of things that's more important, um I think like what your legacy is now and that you're wanting to dig your heels in speaks to the artistic side of things. So where, like, when this is all said and done and the dust settles, what do you want your legacy for Icon to be?
Pioneers in respecting the past while referencing contemporary design and engineering in an entirely novel way. Um, I want to be remembered, I want the brand to be remembered as really creating high functioning sculptures, not
Yeah.
for selling the most expensive vehicles or the most vehicles or yada, yada, yada. So I guess you're cleaning the mirror in front of me. And the reality is, I am at heart purely driven by the artisanal legacy more than the wealth. I just feel like,
All you have to do is die and then you'll make a ton
right,
more money.
just like a good singer, yeah, a poet. But you know, at the same time, I live in this Western capitalist world, and
Yeah.
I want shit that I don't need, and I want that ranch. I'd love to have that crazy car I've never had, and all the crap we fall into collecting and liking. More importantly, I want to, you know, I'd like to not to worry about money. I don't want a jet. I like having friends with jets and playing boats. That's the way to go. And I don't want to be dealing with some of our clients that are absurdly wealthy or high profile. That looks like hell. I want nothing to do with that. I don't want to be on any top any 100 list anywhere. Like, I just like to be comfortable and invisible and able to go anywhere in the world, understand and relate to that culture, and be welcomed in. I think that would
Do
be
do you think you have the ability to get there?
which there.
To be able to buy the car that you've never been able to buy, to live the life, in a way that is lavish enough for you.
Um, like if I stay on the treadmill,
Yeah.
I'm able to do what's really reasonable that I
Right.
want to do, and I'm doing it in my life now.
Mhm.
But if I trip or I want to get off the treadmill, no
Mhm.
way in hell. Um, I think that I think yeah, I think it's possible, but it's going to be through. I don't want to give up my protective nature of this brand at this point in my career.
Sure.
So it likely might come from a new venture, such as the leather goods brand or other stupid ideas I have, to which, upon prior to the foundation of that brand, the perspective is more in a still artisanal,
Mhm.
but P&L and legacy
Sure.
financial scalable vision. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? I think
So
part of what I'm learning from this and still cherishing here, I'm learning to not apply or find any balance for in other ventures. That's
so
easier, right? Psychologically, I think, than making decisions today that I've never made for this
Well,
brand.
I
It
sorry,
was so
Tyler.
good.
The correlation to the treadmill is a good one because, a lot of us and a lot of people listening, like, we're all on treadmills. And when we trip, we fall off. It's like it's not great. It's, there is no cushion behind you. There is nothing else. You got to get back up and you got to get back on that treadmill and you got to catch up. But, and I asked the question,
Or right, get off the treadmill
or
and
get off the
try the
treadmill and
stationary bike.
yeah,
There's something
and
else. If
get
you're off
and
the
get
treadmill,
and
then
get
you're
rid
living
of.
a hippie lifestyle in a yurt somewhere, and you check out.
Well,
That's great.
exactly, and there's a joke in my house that, when I'm stressed out and I have high anxiety, like, Meg's like, "You wanna move to Hawaii, right? Like, just go live on the land and just, like, live on the beach," and I'm like, "Yeah, and just be a bartender and not do shit, like, just bartend and hang out on the beach and learn to surf." But the other part of me is, I do want a jet. Like, I would love to own a jet one day, and for no other reason besides the fact that I just want, like, I think it would be cool. And for me, depending on the day. There's days where I fully believe that's going to happen, and then there's plenty of days where it's like I don't. There's no way. Like I'm not going to be able to achieve that. And I go back and forth, and I think a lot of it has to do with what you said is that, what am I giving up in order to get that? Because right now in my current state on my current treadmill, I would have to give something up in order for me to achieve that. Now, to support what you said, it's like maybe there's another opportunity. Maybe I'm not making leather jackets, but I help develop a product that solves a huge issue that, is kind of just this thing that happens, which a lot of these guys they do. They develop a product that is solving an issue. Oftentimes it's a very boring product,
Who gives
frankly.
a shit? It's the money
And
printer. You know, you license
exactly,
it out, and you only build X number of houses that meet your
right.
design and taste and
And
love and
and
passion.
that
And if
and
that's a great
that
solution.
yeah, and that is, like, that's where I think you and I are so aligned, is that is my goal. I only wanna build the homes that I wanna build, and I'm constantly,
For the people you want to work with.
for
It's
yeah, someone
equally
asked me the other
important.
day, like, "Can
Yeah.
you simplify what you wanna do?" I'm like, I wanna build really fucking cool homes with really fucking cool people. That's it. And I want to do that anywhere in the world. But if you want, like, cool homes, cool people, like, that's it. I don't want to work with shitheads. I don't want to build shitty product. I don't want to be told I have to do something cheaper because it, like, and use less inferior, more inferior product. I want someone to look at it and be like, no, like, you got it. And, I honestly think it was when we talked on the podcast. At the end of that podcast, I talked about how I wanted to do a spec because I would control
Yeah, I
it and
remember
put it
it.
on the
Yeah.
market. And you told me at the end of that podcast, you said, "Just do it."
Okay.
And I remember feeling empowered. We are I'm happy to report that we are currently in design with our first one.
Bravo. Good
two
for
two
you.
and a half years later.
Yeah.
But point is like this is what that's about. It's hey, here's here's the opportunity for us to control this and deliver something that we believe that we can change the market with.
You know, it's
And
interesting too because, right, how old are you now?
35.
Okay. And how about you, Mr. Sneezer?
37.
So let's say early on in our careers, you have one perspective. Like I completely reinvented myself. I walked away from a successful career, talked my wife into walking away from one when we were in our early 20s. It was a risk, but the liabilities were low, meaning I didn't owe anyone any money. Well, a mortgage, but we didn't have kids, didn't have any responsibilities to anyone but ourselves. We took a risk. So to me, back to our treadmill anthology, right? You can, when you're in your 20s or whatever is early on in your career, you can try that treadmill, and if you trip or don't like it or it gives you cramps or it's boring, you can hop off and try the spinning. You can
Mhm.
try the mountain bike, and I think that's healthy and beautiful, and it's part. And people don't realize how big a part of it's actually soul searching, right? Because you're looking for your most fulfilling potentials. I've always been a believer in love what you do, then figure out how to protect that love and make a living doing it, and then it's not like the drudgery of work. But then I think you guys are just entering the phase that I'm further into, which is, all right, you have a greater clarity on where you are and what's important to you, but at the same time, like for me, the whole like first off, you're dreaming because living in Hawaii, you have to show up with a shit ton of money to make that work. But like they're like, I'm gonna move to Portugal and live in a yurt, and, and tan my own leather and beat on dead cows and like just check out, sell all my watches and cars and worldly Western crap I don't need. No, I'm not down with that because I still like good shit.
Mhm.
So now it's like finding that balance of all right, it's gonna the opportunity I think few of us recognize at the phase of these later phases or mid phases the three of us are experiencing in their careers is a lot of it can be tangential. You can protect what it is you're doing, and you don't have to give it up or whore it out or sell out or VC it or cut corners. But it's through your experience and your expertise you've gained, realizing there's a better nail, there's a better joining technique, there's a better way of framing, and like having the audacity, let's say, to have an open enough mind to identify the opportunities, like you said, to create products or solutions. I think that to me is sort of what I'm exploring, and it sounds like the road you're going down. Like, I'm going to protect this so I continue to love it and feel honest about it and sleep well doing it and dream about the next day of doing it. At the same time, show me the money, and I'm going to use these experiences and relationships to come up and develop new product. And I think there's nothing wrong with that. To me, it's better than like cashing out and whoring down.
No, it you're in a position that I feel Nick and myself have been in and experience. It's a struggle that we experience all the time where you want to build the way that you want to build, but realistically, it's not the most lucrative means to be making an income when you're producing the product that you're producing and the profit margins when you're a big company putting out a ton of volume, a 5% profit margin is going to be good. But when you're putting out a very low volume, you're going to want higher profit margins because you don't have a ton of sales.
It's like a
As
Henry
far
Ford quote: "The build for the masses, live with the classes. Build for the classes, live with the masses."
yeah,
Fortunately, I didn't hear that until I was about 20 years into my career.
it's really hard. People think that, and it's very similar to something that I heard you say before with the commoditization of what we're doing. That there's a fine line there where do you want to commoditize it and be able to sell it to more people at a lower profit margin, or you do you want it to remain art and then it's really difficult to make money when you're producing art. Because you're, and that's one of the questions I had for you. Like, you're the name on the art. You're the person that they want, and you're only one person. You only can work 8-10 hours a day, 5 days a week, 50. There's just a limit to how much you can put out. And as long as you're the sole artist here, you're going to be preventing yourself from being able to scale. And I guess I'm just curious, like, how much of these one-off builds are you hands-on that you can't put somebody in your position? Like, what would it take for you to be able to build 2 cars a year versus 1 car a year? Like, what would have to happen?
Okay, so first of all, it's a liability perhaps that when people think of icon, in my opinion, they think of my name. The reality is, okay, I'm the guy who had the crazy idea and pursued
Mhm.
that vision that was keeping me up at night and started making it and then hoped people would buy it. Here we are decades later, and the brand is well established, and honestly, it's what I love probably more than that is if someone knows the brand name icon, almost invariably they have clarity on what we stand for and what we put out. And like that, to me, that's priceless, right? The liability side of that is people think it's me and it's only me. I mean, it's a 50-person team and a network across the country of niche specialist craftsmen, and be it woodworkers and machinists or whatever. I'm just the tard with the original idea who either was smart enough or lucky enough to end up building a team that could take it well beyond what I could do. The physical reality of where we are today, I'm at work 2 days a week. I can work from home. If I'm working with clients on design or I'm doing CAD or renders for things, I can do that remotely. But only because I'm blessed by a very well structured and intelligently run brand that I personally would have never been able. I just don't, that side of my brain doesn't function. So it was that taking that risk, paying a big salary, bringing on key people to build out, to flesh out that team, to allow each and every one of us to focus on the skill sets we're best at, and being able to step back enough to go, okay, I'm decent at that. I think I'm really good at that. I want nothing to do with that, and I really suck at that. So who can fill in these places? Because then once you have that alliance together, you're way more capable as a team than any of you would ever be singularly. But then looking to the future, looking to the next step to scale icon, like move it and scale it in a bunch of product and peripheral ideas within icon, that would require such a shift in culture and ownership that I worry there's the liability that people are like, oh, that's
It's
all
not
that.
icon anymore.
Right. Or people think, oh, like, well, if he's not doing it, but like, I'm not doing it all. I never have
Yeah.
done it all. Like, very rarely have I. It's the team. I just found that was the only way to communicate the brand and what we stood for, because it all came out of my head personally. So I had to grab the mic and pimp and tap dance and tell my story. And I look back of like, what would you do differently? Like, I don't know how to do that without it being a personal representation, because craft, artisanal based anythings are from a distinctly personal perspective, and that's why people should stop and take note. But it becomes a brand liability past a certain scale. That's an interesting challenge that I've found myself becoming aware of. I think the business challenge prior to that was learning when to stop saying yes to everything and when it's appropriate to say no. That was another important lesson at points of scale and brand growth that I never anticipated, and it was interesting to experience. And I appreciate the clarity gained from all those lessons and the opportunity to have hit all of those different transitions. But I think the business environment in the US is such, especially in this state, that I worry about the viability of many different artisanal, hands-on, human-built products and their financial viability because of all the peripheral costs and liabilities left and right are just getting to the point it's just nuts. I've seen a lot of people go, so you know what, screw it. Cash out or just dump it and check out and go back into their garage and build 10 a year instead of 1,000 a year, whatever the hell it was they were doing, both because of the liability or lawsuits and insurance and all the crap and complexity that is running a business. You know, I grew up being proud to keep jobs in America and create good paying wages and supporting families and all that. But I feel like the business structure and the political structure is the point that unfortunately many of my friends in similar positions feel like we're just working for the man. Like we're just working to pay the salary. And it's like workman's comp and those kind of fees. That's taking money directly out of the employee that we should be able to pay more to versus
Mm.
having to pay oftentimes almost what their salary is in insurance against something when it's like, well, wait, that if it went to them instead of this bullshit industry of insurance for your insurance to protect more and more liabilities should be going into the hands of the creators, the crafters, the laborers, like the actual humans there to do it, not all these business models that have been going rampant like we were moaning about before we went live. It should be focused on the core creators, in my opinion.
How have you been able to find people who work for you or other people that you partner with on these builds um, that you can find to represent the same drive that you have and the ethos that you have as far as building it right every single time? How have you been able to do that over the years?
Well, like everyone, I think there's a MacGyver angle to it, in that we've done everything from organic Craigslist posting and social media, you know, looking to hire ads through to big ad platforms and paying absurd amounts of money to get that. Rarely do I find I'm hiring anyone off of like Career Builder or some sort of large site. And I've actually hired people that have like been on film crews here with some show that's doing a segment on us. And like one of the grips or a gaffer will pull me aside and be like, dude, I hate my job. It's soulless, it's unreliable. But me and my dad, I've been building cars since I was 14, and they're flipping through their phones, showing me all the cool shit they've built. And yeah, like I've been welding since I was 12, and man, I'd love to get back into that. That plus good eye contact and sense of pride and presence. Come on in,
Mm.
like I'll hire up. Trying to get people out of trade schools. We've done a lot of that. Rarely have we been successful with that. And I think as the brand's notoriety has gained, fellow nut jobs find us and reach out, which really has been a blessing. But it's a struggle. I mean, we have probably 6 or 7 open positions today that we're still trying to fill.
What's your biggest issue with the young men and women coming out of trade schools?
The school put them in debt and sold them a absolute fairy tale dream that they're going to go work at the whatever luxury dealership and be the chief tech and plug in a computer and it'll do everything for them and they're going to make 180 grand a year.
Yeah.
They come out of school with a false vision of what opportunities will be out there for them with very few of the skill sets needed from a traditional craft. I mean, we do a lot of pioneering engineering shit, but you know, it's not like you're going to plug in a scan tool and chase a PO code and then enter in the computer the part to order and throw the part at it. Like, so a lot of what we do is traditional analog mixed with reverse engineering, laser scanning, and data and CAD. But I think the that's been a key issue. And then the young culture, it's like a griping old dude, but I am finding more and more, especially after the COVID experience, the younger generation, to the most part, but I think many employees, and quite often quite justifiably, start to question the net.
Yeah.
They're like, why am I going to bust my ass for $35, $45 an hour. My overhead's this, my insurance is this, my cell phone's this, my subscriptions are that, my yada yada yada. And they look at the math, and it's making less and less sense in modern um, culture, especially in metropolises where the cost of living is so damn high. The other one that I find frustrating is, to me, they're like butterflies. The idea of loyalty and like staying
Yeah.
and growing with a company and gaining in pay and responsibility and putting the time in and being part of something intrinsically, like that seems to be gone.
But do you have a career path for them? Like, is that clearly mapped out?
That's a good point, and the honest answer is rarely. There's a
And
problem
and
with that,
and
right?
most
There's
people
a cap at some point
most
of
people in these
how far you
industries
can
don't.
go.
Yeah, like, even in my company, we're struggling with it, where it's like, I know, there's data to prove it. The number one people leave is because they don't know how to grow within that company. And
But at
when
the
someone
same time,
else.
I think it's a pandemic of sorts because they're so now culturally conditioned to not even have the foresight to even ask the question you just posed.
Yeah.
They're
No, I mean,
literally within 2 weeks of work, and I'm not speaking about right now, we've got a killer crew, but I've had these issues, but I
sure.
just hear it from so many small business owners that, like, yeah, I want double what is reasonable, and I want flexible hours, and I expect to be a manager in 6 months, and in a year I'm going to be smarter than everyone there, and I'm going to go start my own. And it's like the idea of paying dues or even internship or
That's gone.
trial by fire is gone. Everyone feels like it's just going to land in their lap and it's easy. Like, I can't count the number of people that have joined the team and been lovely. And then at some point, the father in law or someone says, "Oh, you can do this yourself." Well, they're incredible fabricators, mechanics, or whatever their special skill set is. They have no concept of the functioning dynamics for it to be a properly managed business. They have no clue. So I think there's a disconnect from the big picture,
Yeah,
probably going back to just the dopamine addiction that we're all stuck on. But they'll butterfly out of here in 3 months because we
totally.
didn't double their salary in 3 months before they've proven everything and they're still getting certified on key things. And but
Butterfly out of here.
yeah, and like my COO is wonderful in creating futures for them. So, we have 401ks and dental and medical and all that stuff, and we respect and protect our crew. We've got guys with us that have been with me for 25 years, which is exceptional. And we set out timelines literally upon hire. Okay, your first review is going to be in 6 months.
Mhm.
These are the goals. We'll sit down, their team leaders and members of their own team through a blind ballot. Will hopefully put constructive advice of how they can evolve better with others, sync better with the team, or skills that would be good for them to add. We offer them additional certification and training that will allow them to cross pollinate skills and be more useful to the company, giving us greater diversity to put them in different positions when someone's out sick or demands higher here than it is there. So I think we do an exceptional job of that, down to mapping your next raise. If you meet these targets, will be this percent or that percent. But at the same time, I feel like we never meet the expectations, which is frustrating.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's a lot of things there that we could unpack. Something that spoke to me that you said earlier on in your response, and something that was within my question was with regard to how these young men and women are being trained in school and how they're coming out and how they're being fed this false promise of what they're going to be able to do. And I think that there's there's this intrinsic issue with how we're training these kids and the software that we're using, and essentially that they do not know how to solve problems. They're being fed answers. You're going to put this part in, and if this part doesn't work, check this box. Then it's going to bring you, all right, now try this part. And if that doesn't work, or if that does this, then go to this next step. And they don't know how to delineate or get from the beginning of the problem. They don't know how to solve problems on
Right.
their own.
Or
They're
God
just like
forbid,
going through a program that's telling them what to do, and they can't think on their
or they
own.
don't even know
They
which end
can't
of the hammer
problem
to hold.
solve.
Like
Yeah.
like
And
my
like
son, my
that's how we're
oldest son.
training people.
Yeah, it's there's massive issues with that, in my opinion. I think it's that and where we are today in our culture that have brought these concerns. I don't mean, I hope I'm not coming off negative. We have wonderful team and it's grand, but these trends and directions I see us collectively heading cause me more and more concern about the viability and how to protect the future of artisanal based endeavors. But like
Yeah.
my oldest son Nash, gifted designer, graduated from Otis, top of his class. Even if I discount how that school stepped on their wee wee during COVID and it was an entire, his senior year was a waste of my money and his time, the holes in the training they provide were appalling. I mean, were downright negligent. Like, for example, you think in a design school, there should be a class, even just a brief class on intellectual property and what should be respected, where the boundaries are, what the constraints are, what you should do to protect yours, what's inappropriate to do with the work of others, etc. Not a word.
Nothing.
How about running a P&L, how to structure the company, how to present bids, how to write shit, how to write a check? Like none of that exists. So I worry more and more, and a lot of it I've seen directly in a design education platform. It's coming from big corporate entities that are funding the school to funnel people to comfortably fit into the cubicle that's compliant with their corporate structure. So therefore, if that student graduated and was a gifted whatever he majored in, but also understood business, understood intellectual property, understood the wider gamut of responsibilities, he'd be downright dangerous to them. So he's better for them if he's just good at designing
Hmm.
sun visors. Great. He'll fit in the machine, he won't disrupt, and we can party on and keep the shareholders happy. So I think a lot of times it's been large lobby industry groups that have kind of changed the narrative there for the scholastic program. I just saw that actually happen at LA Trade Tech in a very positive sense. There's a local luxury leather goods brand company that has been around for probably 30 years. Beautiful facility, proud to be here in LA, fighting desperately to stay in LA. Can't find new hires. A lot of his people are aging out. Next generation's like, no way, heck with that. So they actually came in and funded an apparel program at LA Trade Tech, gave them the money to construct a curriculum that was compliant with what they're dying for in new employees. So stuff like that, I think I see as being beautiful and highly successful, but usually it's coming from very large entities that are really going to be more about what protects status quo in their field and creates little happy bots to go into the chambers. You know?
So how do you think that we as artists or craftsmen grow our fields as what we're doing? If I understand myself personally, it's wanting to hunker down and create, you get away from creating commodity and create art, but obviously that's limiting the scale and that's limiting our impact. So what do we do as craftsmen and artisans to continue to grow the career path for what we're doing?
I mean, I'm still on that path in my 50s, but to me, I have a very clear answer to that. Respect your perspective, protect it for all it's worth, meaning, find your unique way at looking at an existing product or situation in which you create a vision for a better way, even not better, your way. Protect that, grow that, spread the word about that. So, like, you're hunker down and do the art, yes, but have a big mouth.
Yeah.
So you create the foundation, you establish the legacy, then have the patience to understand what the tributaries are. Once there's enough water in the river, you can dig the creeks. Then you can
It's
build the dams. Then
it's
you can
just
create the hydroelectric. You know what I mean? But to me, the happy place, because I've known plenty of sickly rich people that are miserable bastards. So I think all our capitalist Western expectations and hopes and dreams, for better or worse, are not as nearly important as your sense of community and family and friends and feeling fulfilled. And for creatives, that's by what we envision and get out of our brains and into dimensional reality, right? So if all that shit's not happening and you're busy pursuing selling shorts or what, or whatever, or doing what everyone else said you should do, you're always going to be a miserable bastard, be you wealthy, be you poor. So I think you protect that core, you're a happier human. Shake anyone's hand, have a conversation with anyone. An idiot judges any book by its cover in today's society. Like one of the top 5 richest men in the world showed up here unannounced, jeans, flip flops, and a t-shirt, a mask, and a hat. I welcome him like I've welcomed anyone who's walked into. Well, now we have a closed shop by appointment only, but that's just the reality of what's culture has become locally here. It's like a homeless encampment 360 around us. We literally have to lock our gate and doors during the workday. But that's another rant. But anyway, you never know what any conversation is going to turn into. If someone wants to pick your brain, they want advice, or they want to offer you something you have no interest in, shake their hand, take the meeting, listen to them, give them eye contact. I call it lily pads. The number of lily pads that I've stepped onto with absolutely no idea of what it would turn into or what could come out of it, or more importantly, going into it with no expectation that, oh, if I'm going to talk to this person, I'm going to get paid, I'm going to get meat, I'm going to get something. No, open heart, open mind. I mean, protect yourself, but be open. Incredible opportunities have come from the most random chance interactions in 5 minutes that you get some. I think that's
How
critical.
how
You
did that
guys have
person?
felt that, right?
Yeah, I mean, I- I'm gonna. I'm just gonna ask my question. How did that guy show up at your shop? Top 5. I think you mentioned who he was on the last podcast.
No, massive NDA, they won't let me. But
How did he find Icon? Does this go back
uh,
to flooding the
I
rivers?
think a friend of his was already a client, and he had visited that friend around that time and had seen our products in person,
Hmm.
and then found himself in LA on business and then came in. I've also had crazy individuals that follow us on Instagram. Speaking of judging the
Hmm.
modern book by its cover, from blocked accounts with 200 followers. And they're like the crazy ballers. Like, so
yeah.
you never know. We had a dude roll up in like a beat to piss, multi crashed, replaced panel, hammered old Toyota pickup truck with a bunch of Gardner gear swinging in the back of the truck with like snippers and leather tool things on his vest, and beat up old cheap work boots and jeans. That walked in, didn't speak a lick of English, talked to him for a while in my best possible Spanglish. And 6 months later, the guy walked back through the door unannounced again, thanked me for taking the time to speak with them. And thanks for explaining how we work. And is there somewhere we can go in private? Yeah. We go somewhere in private. He literally reaches down the front of his pants, pulls out a plastic bag with a starting deposit for the vehicle that he had been dreaming of having us build. And over time, we built him 2 more. Turns out he's like one of the biggest avocado farmers in North America,
Huh.
but he's just a down to earth dude who doesn't give a shit about bling and luxury. He likes what he likes. He has clarity of who he is, and he's used to being completely written off if he walks in. So,
Hmm.
That's insane.
yeah. Oh, it's nuts. Yeah. And thank
Um,
God we don't have dealers, because the
yeah,
personal relationships gained from having direct communication
Yeah.
with our customer base has so enriched my life. And I don't mean just as like business opportunities or they buy more cars, but travel and introductions and experiences, and just it opens your stay open, your world stays open. You hunker
it's
down too much, you just become a bitter old bastard in a shed.
it's 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 really difficult with what we do because I think that there's so many talented craftsmen and craftswomen that don't have a big mouth. Like you said, in order to grow what we're doing, there's a handful of people who have a stage, who have a platform, who are able to articulate what they're doing and attract people to this industry. But most of the true artisans, they don't want that notoriety. They don't want to get on their soapbox. They don't want to speak to what they're doing. And it those are some of the people where if they were to have a bigger impact and the attraction that they would gain toward the industry would be massive. It's just that's not what they got into it for. So it's really hard to rely on that as a fundamental means for growing people getting into the auto industry or getting into the carpentry field or whatever it may be, because a lot of those people, like, they're just content being a carpenter. They're just content
And
being a body worker.
there's
It's really
nothing
it's
wrong with
tough.
that. But if they learn from our collective further down the road in life experiences, I would hope they hear us in that, understand what's important to you. And if doing your craft and living simple and keeping it light works for you, great. If you also are corrupted by this, by obtaining more, living grander, etc., as many of us might be, then you have to go. You have to. I think you have to start listening to the parrot on the other shoulder earlier in life. I wish I had,
Yeah.
because, for example, that young craftsman, if he does plan on having a family, and like he's like, oh, I want to have 4 kids and I want to have 20 acres or whatever his dream, her dream is, at some point, and better earlier than later, is the reality of you're going to have to find a balance between the art and the business. Therefore, even if it's super early on, I think younger people really take for granted the power of social media to spread the word at no cost to you, just trivial, minimal effort. And just that singular effort, that brief attention to record what you're doing. Like the amount of cars that I built early on in life, and incredible furniture and sculptures and stuff I did that I never took a single picture of. And there was no internet or social media, so there
Yeah.
wouldn't have been any pimping of it. But man, how I yearn to even have a personal record of all that stuff that's gone now, you know? So I think respecting that that might become more important to you later, and giving your Instagram feed just a little bit more attention and stuff like that can pay dividends.
Sure.
But if it's not
Uh,
important to you, it's not important to you, and there's certainly nothing wrong with that. I just think so many times when we're younger, we don't stop to really ask. Like we just hop on the treadmill, we hop on the that road that either our schooling or our upbringing, our parents told us we were going to do. And it's not until we're many miles down it that we start to actually stop, take a breath, and question, is this the road for me? Or am I doing it right? Should I consider what I might be thinking 10 years later down this road? What could be important? And what could I do at little to no impact in my life today to cover my ass for those potential changes in perspective?
yeah. So something that I've seen you do over the years, and I would say is synonymous with your brand, is you've proven that not only can you have these detailed, well thought out designs, um, but how you are blending the vintage automobile with the modern technology. And I look at it from our point of view, or from my and Nick's point of view, right, where we could build something that's beautiful, but to have it function and be beautiful is really difficult.
Oh
Like,
man, that and architecture is such a sweet spot.
but
Yeah.
it's the same thing with you, right? You have the purists who want just a very a rebuilt automobile where everything is original and it's restored, and then you've crossed these lines and blended these lines where you have these vehicles that for all intents and purposes look as if they're a restored vehicle, but then they have all the modern technologies. And I think that you blend that, right? You're not going to go into one of your cars and have like a new dashboard with every single option on there, but where you need it, like you've been able to blend these lines where you put the technology where it's needed, but then you stay consistent with the stylings and the period correct architecture of the car. And how have you done that, and how difficult has that been? And again, from my perspective, it's I can build something beautiful, I can build something that's functional, but to be able to build something that's beautiful and functional is really tough to do.
Yeah, especially like looking at it more from your perspective, that might mean you have the bones of an incredible arts and crafts or mid-century, whatever the foundation is. That's what we're doing for the most part. That comes with it a lot of compromise and constraint because that hallway is only so wide. You can only remove so many joists, and you need the structure here or there. So the constraints of an original body shape and structure in and on itself creates numerous challenges and constrictions on how far you can take something. But I mean, it's a total shit show, but it's everything to
Yeah.
me. Um, I think the next step of taking that up a notch would like be in architecture to amass the craftsman, deep dive the era of design language your client or you are spec building for, and to do a lot of soul searching and in your mind building models before you put pen to paper or mouse to CAD or anything. So for me, the next step, like a project I'd love to do, is I've always loved early 356 Porsches and early VWs,
Mm.
right? So like, let's say an oval window bug. The purity, the simplicity of them is epic. The design continuity, because back then it was one person's vision, pretty much, handled every little knob and every switch, and that's only from days gone by you're going to find it. Now, if I were to start restoring and retro modding whatever it is I do, early bugs, I'd still be hampered by all the constrictions we are by everything we do. However, if I were to scan an early bug, get that bugger in, get those polyforms into CAD, turn it on a surface data, and then sintered carbon or superform or hydroform that shit in aluminum and take responsibility from the ground up. No donor car required. Control everything.
Mm.
Four-wheel independent, big ass brakes, rack and pinion, all-wheel drive, ice and or electric, etc. Traditional color palettes and materials and like the bamboo luggage tray under dash, shit like that. Dang, like I'd love that. But I still don't see the viable math of that because the upfront engineering costs to do that would necessitate a point of scale and volume that I think is doable and the demand would be there. It's just beyond my core skill set. So
Yeah.
that might be an example of a tributary I can build off of the River of Icon, get another partner who has more of the industrial scalable skill set and expertise to take my wacky idea, put it into an industrial setting where it's scalable and viable, and I keep a small piece of the pie. But like that's the next level of it, is to
Yeah.
free yourself, myself in this case study, of those realistic constrictions that you bring up.
Yeah, it's I've always admired what you do with that, and at first glance, obviously you have your branding on cars, but they don't appear to have the level of intricacy that you have in them. It's not like you're taking these cars and doing these flamboyant restorations or I keep one. Yeah, but, like, it's just crazy to think that you're able, and obviously the derelicts are of their own beast, but you're able to retrofit these cars to be what could be an everyday driver, but still looks like it's an older car, and you're not losing the utility there, and I think that that's really where the difficulty lies, because a 40, 50, 60-year-old car by today's standards are not gonna be a well-driving car. And the fact that you're able to do that is really neat. Something that I also saw that you did, and I'm not sure if this is still the case, but when you're building a car and then handing that car off, and I think this relates to what Nick has done with his business, but you have an aftercare process for the vehicles that you're sending them out with, so that if that goes to a mechanic, they understand how to work on the car. Can you
Yeah,
explain that a little bit for us?
yeah, it's key. So every project we finish will obviously be every step, every widget, every component is within the software, documenting the process. Extensive photos generally sent to the client on a routine basis or keep billing points to show them where we are. So then when we're
Can I
done,
pause you? Can I just pause you there for 1 minute? How
yes,
are those being sent? Just like text or email? Do you
yeah,
guys
old
have?
school, just email. We don't do any
Cool.
platform sharing. It kind
Got
of,
it.
it's like
Okay.
it works good enough, screw it. Although we've been thinking about Airtable, stuff like that, but I
Mm,
worry it's just one more platform to
yeah.
maintain. So pretty traditional email. Here you go. We're on week X. We've achieved Y.
Cool.
Budget's looking good. Here's where you stand today, etc. And here's some images. And here's your invoice. Please get us one. But when the car is done, we have a specific sort of switchblade thingy called a key port, which houses all the keys. Within that is a large capacity memory stick, within which is all photos from as found through to my photo shoot when we shoot every YouTube video at the end of it's done. Then an unencrypted build sheet of every single component in it with the supplier's part number, not even our internal, plus what it is, what its specs are, and where they can get it. If we should fall off the face of the planet, they can still access even proprietary stuff directly from our vendors because we've already set up those pre-approvals for how they can interact with the end user, as well as every little like paper PDF manual that critical components within our builds come from the manufacturer supplier. We digitize those and add them in. Then I have like a owner's I've learned the quick glance is at most all they'll ever look at, like how to do this, how to do that, party on. I wonder what what tiny ass percentage has ever read the whole thing, but I'll do like
Mhm.
a full on owner's manual of what to do, what not to do, how to do it. Then we have service protocol and timing, when you should handle this, when you should check that. So we really try and take responsibility for that because having been a collector of odd home built or pro built cars throughout my life, it's a shit show. I mean, they're Johnny
Yeah.
Cash specials, so it's a bit from this, a that from that, and like trying to figure out what's what, who did what, where to source what generation it is. It's a nightmare. So I just, out of my own frustration and having been on the other side of that, like at launch was like, that's like critical, especially as we expand to more and more overseas clients. They can't be
Mm.
dependent on us. It'd be a disaster.
So
At what point did you integrate that into your process? Like, how far along were you? Was it just too many emails and phone calls coming in that you were like, we just have to put this together for each car we
No,
build?
honestly, I feel like even before we saw an impact of not doing that, I had already had the personal experience enough to be cognizant that it would be important to do that.
Yeah.
I think for the first 5 years, it was a stack of paperwork and a big folder with something.
yeah.
And then we digitized it. Frankly, I think around the time USB sticks could handle that load. And then the one-offs can go all the way through to the digital intellectual property for the custom widget or knob or grill or whatever. If they rear end the Prius who panic stopped because he got a text, uh, you know, It'd be helpful if
I
they
feel like
put the
that's a real life
3D file
situation.
to have that ridiculous one-piece billet, 4-foot wide custom grill we designed for them.
What's the bumper sticker on the Prius say?
Yeah, exactly. I love that. That's actually one of the funniest modern bumper stickers. And if no one knows what we're talking about, it says in quotes, "Cool Prius," and then it's accredited to dash nobody ever. I love that. Years ago, I was
Um,
trying to get a Kia Toyota to fund me to build 2 crazy cars just for Toyota to use at shows to show they actually have a sense of humor, which apparently they never did. One was to take a Yaris and stuff an ISF into it. Just to make an absolute rally, gutter ball, sleeper, kill everything, what looks to be a fairly stock Yaris. The other
Mm.
was I wanted to do like a NASCAR truck Toyota powertrain based full tub ladder bar in your face Prius that like pops fucking wheelies with a big parachute on the back. And they were like, oh, perhaps. With
I don't think the Japanese
Japanese
Per-
have
polite for
a
Perhaps
never,
massive
ever,
sense of
ever.
humor. No,
the
they're pretty cut and dry.
They are quite.
the so this aftercare, it's interesting because we're doing that with our homes where we're putting together all the documentation, but then we're maintaining them. And basically they're paying us to maintain the home, so they're not. It's completely hands off, and I've never
So
really thought of it.
is that like a monthly contracted
It's an
situation,
annual
or
contract.
you just say
It's an
like a flat
annual contract.
annual contract?
So we basically collect all the information and um, you know figure out what the home requires, right? Like the fridge requires the filter to be changed X amount of times per year. And in order to maintain warranty, you got to vacuum out the coil. You got to do all these things. So basically, piece by piece, making sure that we're maintaining the home so it's always in within warranty for all the product, but it also aesthetically looks good at all times, right?
Is that novel in your industry?
There's not a lot of people do like
Pretty damn clever.
yeah, there's not a lot of people doing it. The I would say that um like the 1% build, like most builders are very small companies and don't have a big team. I think the companies that do have a team as well as working in the luxury market, they typically have some sort of care program. Most of them are handling like mechanical, like spring and winter time, like mechanical shutdown and ramp up, and then like an on-call handyman. We're building a complete program out, and being more proactive with it, and pricing it up front. And they're obviously it's a la carte, that they can add on stuff throughout the year, but it's essentially we're always a touch point for them.
That's a great
um
idea. Because it's funny, like back to like the mindset of many tradesmen, craftsmen using often just one side of the brain solely, right?
mhm.
But the revenue loss there. So like
Yeah.
even my HVAC contractor, when I put in the new AC system because my dumbass forgot to maintain it and change a filter and I screwed myself and then it was
Yeah.
out of date and then the codes changed and like blah blah blah. When they installed the new system, like, hey, do you guys have like a calendar system? Could you just put me on calendar? Like, love you guys, trust you guys. I screwed up in the
No, we're
past,
too
but
busy.
I got
That's
a
what they
lot
said.
of things on my plate. Can you just hit me up and like let's stay up with the maintenance? Sure, no problem. Fart never happened.
Yeah.
But then I end up like putting calendar notifications for
Yeah.
myself. But it would seem like just for customer loyalty
Yeah.
and baseline maintenance income, it just seems stupid
It's
not to like.
it's
It's a
that
simple thing to do. There's so many tools to allow that.
there's two things on that. Number one, if you're talking about strictly HVAC and you want to be reminded when to change your filters, the best hack is go to Amazon and just set up a filter subscription in Amazon. So then the filters just show up every 6 months. And then that way it's like every time they show up, you're like, all right, now I know I got to replace
Well,
them.
come on,
I
I
change
wasn't
mine
trying to
every
help.
3.
I wasn't trying to
Well,
help
then
Jeff.
set up the subscription
I
there.
wasn't trying to help
But
No, but it
Jeff. I
is
was
if
trying to
you're
help the tradesman.
Yeah, like if
No,
you're
I
if
no,
you're
I
if
know.
you're
I'm saying like,
servicing HVAC, it's like, yo, we have a program where we can come every quarter
yeah,
and make sure that you're like, why
guaranteed five
wouldn't
hundred
you do
dollars,
that? You could hire
guaranteed.
somebody full time to do that and make money.
It's funny though,
Yeah,
like that. The reason that was top of mind for me was my wife's been harping on me, like, you haven't changed the filter, you haven't changed the filter, you haven't changed the filter. And my son just moved back in for summer from college, so now that I had someone to help my sorry ass hold the ladder because I got a new knee and I'm pretty good on it, but I don't need to be falling off any roofs in the near future. So like I dug out the filter, I climbed up on the roof, I went to check it out. The thing doesn't even take a filter because it's no longer my attic, it's now a roof mount with evaps around the perimeter and the intake fan. And
yeah. I
I'm
was gonna
like,
say why there
Yeah,
shouldn't be a filter on the
yeah,
roof.
well, I'm like, honey, I
yeah.
changed the filter. It didn't even.
All set. All
Every
set.
time I change my HVAC filter, I'm like, that really wasn't as bad as I thought it was gonna be. I don't know why I put that off for 3 weeks worth of calendar alerts. I just
Right.
kept muting it.
Yeah, I think it was the 3-year put off on the previous system that bit me in the ass.
That'll do it.
But part of my liabilities for my headset, I get very monocular. So like if
Yeah.
I'm working on a project, literally the puppy can be taking a crap behind me. The fireplace could have set the curtains on fire. The pool could be overfilled because I turned the valve on in the morning. I won't even notice. Like
No.
I'll just be in the zone in my little happy space. So
Mm-hmm.
The house
I should
blew up
work on
around you and you're just sitting
it.
there by
Yeah,
yourself, and
exactly.
then you look, where'd everything go?
Rubble and what's that water? Oh, it's a fire hose. Why is he here? Oh shit. Yeah.
What
Wi-Fi works.
if you had to pick one product, one project that you've done to date, whatever medium that may be in, do you have a favorite?
So hard to pick. Often it's a recent one that I'm still all rosy-eyed
Figuring
about.
out.
But I
Yeah.
think as of today, I would say it's the 300 SEL Mercedes-Benz derelict that we built with the dry sump blown intercooled LS9, 4-wheel independent. I did a lot of very subtle. I noticed my design taste, if the client gives me the bandwidth, is getting more complex, but way more subtle. So, like,
Yeah.
unless you have owned that car and have many S-ometer miles in it, you would not catch 70% of the touch point mods done because they're coming from me having done a very deep dive into the designer or the design language of that era, that country, or that brand. So when you touch it, the tactile interface is elevated, the material execution is elevated, the functionality is elevated, but it's done in such tight continuity with the original design that you may never even notice.
Yeah. I saw an article on that. It was a pretty cool
That
car.
car was so badass, so much fun to drive.
It looks so cool. But that, I mean, that's exactly what I was speaking to earlier, that I mean, it's got to be so much work to be able to do that and have these cars perform the way that they do while trying to maintain that consistency and continuity with period correct design.
It's hard enough to do it in a platform that I'll spend 7 digits R&Ding and testing before I start repeating it and selling it for 300 or 250 or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
It's really, really hard to do that on a one and done one-off project
Yeah.
because I'm relying on gut experience, occasionally CAD emulations and cycling, and the expertise of our various partners and suppliers. But at the end of the day, I mean, it's nutty. I mean, especially as we get into these electric builds. You know,
The
I've been
problem
7/10 down a road for something new to hit the market that just is a evolutionary step better than what I'm 70% through with, and having to call the client. Fortunately, it's not uncomfortable because I really hyper vet those clients in the first place with all the liabilities of what they're asking me to do. But still, even then, to call them and go, so that operating system we were using, well, there's this new one, and it does all of that, and this, and this, and this, and this. But basically, to do that, we have to back up 4 months and throw away all this shit and start over again. And fortunately, they're generally like right there with me, like, well, yeah, that sucks, but we have no choice. Like we bit into this apple, we got to keep going.
Yeah.
But
it's
yeah,
so
it's a
difficult.
challenge. But I mean, frankly, if it wasn't, I would have been bored and out of here a long time ago.
When you're so into a project like that, as we are just describing, where the house falls down around you, you're conceding so many hours to that project that you're not getting paid for as well, because
Oh
it's just
yeah,
like
I
it's
personally,
you're so into it and it's
yeah.
fun and you're enjoying it. It's like, I don't even care if I'm getting paid for this. This is so sick right now.
Unfortunately, from a businessman perspective, you are dead nuts right, and that is what happens, especially with my time specifically and my senior management staff. We're not billing for our time. I mean, granted, other than the weekend phone calls or texts that some of my upper staff will deal with from clients, those calls or texts to me, and my literally at night falling asleep by like, I think we talked about this last time, like my version of counting sheep jumping a fence is I'm building out 3D models in my head
Hmm.
on the project we're working on or on the one we're developing or starting next. That shit's free. I mean, that's
Yeah.
just part of it.
Yeah. One other question I have for you
No, no, I'll come to you. Sorry.
would no, that's fine. If you were to buy a new car, what would the new car be? Just had to go out, or suggestions like, I listen, I have to go get a new car for my wife. Her car is done. What's
Wait,
the
we
new car?
talking like
What's the new
like
car gonna? No, just
hypercar?
like just normal car.
Oh, normal car.
Normal car. Oh shit. It,
Like
it
you have to go buy your kid their first car. What's it gonna be?
well, that's easier to answer because both of my boys had distinctly different tastes in what they wanted as their first car. Neither of them got what they wanted. They
Good.
both got the 1997 FZJ80 Toyota Land Cruiser that we brought both of their asses home from the hospital in when they were born.
Nice.
Sold it, bought it back from a client more than a decade later, serviced it up, left it all sun faded and beat to shit, and they both had to serve 12 months in that slow beast and not hit anything or get any tickets before they could start to pursue what they really wanted.
Mm.
And we still own that car, and it's still the spare vehicle for the whole family and occasionally friends. For me, I'm kind of the wrong guy to be able to answer. Like, even when I've rarely become enchanted with some new car, and it hasn't been from a brand that I have a friend in PR or that in marketing at the company to borrow one from their press fleet because I'm in the
Hmm.
media and flog it for a week, but invariably, like by the end of the week, I'm like, okay, that was fun, but it has no soul. I'm out of here. My dumbass has bought it, and I'm still making payments, and like I'm over it.
Hmm.
It was fun. I worked with Ford for over 5 years on the launch of the new Ford Bronco. So I have the 16th, I think, one of those made, and that's fun. We take that out in the desert, beat the piss out of it, and I run it routinely. I have one of the last of the new Toyota Land Cruisers before Toyota discoed them, and it's great for what it is with its glory of 12 miles to the gallon,
Yeah, they're big.
2-ton tank. But man, what a comfy, safe, quiet couch.
Mm.
It's kind of my old man rig. I'd probably want something inappropriately obtuse and irrational, like I don't know, one of the manual tranny rare trim balls out packages coming out of Porsche modern
Mm.
911 iterations. I definitely there's a dude on my street who has a GT2. It's parked
Mm.
outside 24/7, and I'm like, every time I drive by, I'm like, dude, what the hell? Like, but I guess his wife's Tesla's in his one car garage, so he got kicked to this.
Oh my God.
Whatever. First world problems. But like, I'd be down with something like that. But I like by the time it's interesting to me, it's outside of my price point. Like, I can
Yeah.
afford it, and I'm not a supercar guy. I don't like
Mm.
the social connotations of that, especially
Sure.
where I live. Like, if I roll up in a McLaren or a Pagani or some supercar, everyone's already written the book about me, and it's not going to go in my favor. And
Yeah.
like that's the last. I'd rather hop in my derelict '52 Chrysler and let people think I'm homeless. And usually the valet guy is a car dude. He knows what's up and what it is, and they'll move the McLaren and park my shit out front and I strut on
Hell
in.
yeah.
Like that's cool. I'm down with that. But like
That
I
is
also
so
want to go
true.
to a swap meet, leave the window down, let
Yeah.
it be filthy, clean the windshield, and not be a martyr to keeping it perfect. Like,
It
eh.
it's so true. Like those they are like the McLarens, the Lamborghini, especially the Lamborghini, but even Ferrari, they have like you see one and it's like it's cool, but you're absolutely right. You're already like, yeah, I already know what that guy's gonna be
And
like.
I have friends at some of those brands,
Mm,
and they acknowledge that the one starting with an L more than all of them.
sure.
But it's a challenge.
Yeah.
It's a marketing challenge because even if we see it and we're drawn to the beauty of it and we can
Hmm.
afford it, we don't want to be that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
Like that's a challenge. So like,
Yeah.
how do you expand your demographic by coming up with more shit that appeals to more people without it carrying the legacy baggage of your core demographic? Like
Mm,
gold chain, cigar, belly out, lots of hair, never shaved it, great
yeah.
tan, bro, is the social connotation that comes with some incredibly gorgeous and well engineered cars. But like,
I know.
think of the majority of consumers like, yeah, I don't want to be that guy. So they never
Right.
embrace the brand. Although the prick in the Lamborghini Urus or Uranus or whatever that SUV
I
thing is
think it's a Uranus.
that went
Yeah.
up my street today, passing two people that have been neighbors for decades on the wrong side of the street with his cats removed, wide open throttle on a small canyon road.
Yeah.
It took every ounce of me not to hunt him down like a wild animal, control my road rage. But again, like everyone's so unglued that like I didn't want to flip anyone off in the car anymore. I'm just like,
Mm, yeah.
find your
Yeah,
zen, don't engage. But
those
that's
people you
scary
probably
too, right? Culturally, at the point where we don't want to engage,
yeah.
no
Hmm.
one engages, no one pulls the leash on people. Like then where?
It's a
Yeah,
mess.
I think we're kind of there. But no, I never even thought about it that way. You probably so many people I want one of these cars. I want one of these cars and then when they get to the point that they can afford one of those cars, they're like I don't want to be one of those people.
Thank
Yeah.
God though, because then they become icon clients.
Yeah.
True.
So rarely do
Good
we
for
Because
get
it
you.
the
It
is like
works
you
out
rapper.
well.
you
Rarely
think
do we get
about
the
it like
rapper, the celebrity. We're more apt to get the creator whose shit went nuts and
right.
went public or whatever, or the, generally a self-made and whatever it is that they did, be it
But
physical or
Oh yeah, the rest of them want
they
you
want
to
that.
know what
They want
car
that.
they're
Right.
driving. Yeah, for
Look
sure.
at me. Our
Exactly.
demographics, like maybe at most, they're like, been there, done that, didn't like that. Now I want the next level of that. I want something hyper unique and individual that,
Mhm.
you know, draws out smiles and thumbs up at most from people, or
Right.
sometimes not even that, just is distinct and is individual and reflects my taste, but everyone just leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah. That's so
We see
cool.
that
Well,
more and
we
more, and I notice in recent builds of architecture in LA, for a while it seemed the highest end was trending towards big blind shrub lines can't see it.
Mhm.
Now the entire house is lit up 24/7. The whole
Yeah.
frontage is glass. It's right on the fucking street,
Yeah.
and then those cars are parked in front, and
Yep.
it seems to be like I
look at
want to
me.
be a reality show. When you drive by, I want you to see my wife's ass in the window and all my cars and my diamond studded Patek or whatever.
Right.
Somebody
So
said it
odd.
on our podcast before, and I love it. It's one of my favorite terms, but he called that a monument of ego,
Oh, totally.
and
I see
I
that.
felt like it was so fitting.
Whereas for me, like recent life experiences, I often tell like friends when we're talking about perspective or directions we want to go in life, I'm like, no, I kind of had a separation. I don't think divorce is fair, but I had a separation from my ego in the last 5 years, where there would
Cool.
in the past be projects that I would do because I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm going to do that because no one's ever pulled that off before. I want to be the first. Now I'm like, no, I don't need that anymore. Like, I want to be pioneering, I want to be novel, but I don't have to be the first guy. The first mouse doesn't necessarily get the cheese, so to speak. Like a lot of things I would have done for really egocentric basis, I now through age and burnout maybe have the wisdom to go, "No, I'm gonna check myself on that. Like, nah, I don't need to be trying to go that crazy."
It's probably the smarter thing to do.
Yeah, I'm
Um,
feeling good about it.
So, is there anything that you want to advocate for yourself? Anything that you have on your radar that's exciting, or anything that we didn't touch on that you want to pay nod to as we're wrapping things up?
Well, as I made my last statement, I realized I'm lying. Should start there because there's still the there's still because I just looked out my window and I saw the big wallboard I have on it. I'm like, oh, then there's that. There's this dumbass revisionist history concept car that I spent a lot of time and energy developing that I still want to build. I still want to do it.
Mm,
It's called the Helios, and involves a lot of what if transportation had taken inspiration from aerospace decades before it did? What if this and that? Whatever. I still want to
mm.
build that, so I'm not fully healed. I'd like to see that happen. Um, when's this episode air? Do you guys know your timeline? We got a
About
bunch
a
of
week from
pipeline.
today.
About a week from now.
Yeah.
All right. Two cool new things. We talked about it last time, but I'm super active with my children's charity called Go Campaign, and we create opportunities for kids in the U.S. and abroad, generally by identifying a local hero of and in a community that's already making an impact and found a solution that improves the lives of kids, and then we bring to them resources of business intellect, structure, and grant money to help them grow their program, be more efficient, and ideally become self-sustainable as like a business model that is charitable but is able to support itself. So, two cool things. On June 10th, we're having a really cool event in Santa Monica, which is like local restaurateurs, Madre Mezcal, a bunch of vintners, and then my famous kick-ass auction of cool shit made by my craftsmen and women friends all over the world. So the auction
That's
will be
awesome.
online, and the event is obviously in person. And if anyone's interested in looking into that, it's gocampaign.org. And then I just am excited, just close this. I've had this idea for a show as a you guys know I'm like serial obsessive creator, and I love to study different skills and arts and crafts. And to me, if you're a craftsman, there should be no boundaries. I don't care if you're a furniture maker or a baker or whatever it is, there's a common vein in all of us. And I've always thought transportation design is such an interesting combination of so many isolated art and
Yeah.
techniques and skills in an incredibly cohesive and shareable platform, right? So from that perspective, I was thinking, wouldn't it be cool if there was a like car show event you could go to that had a wide embrace where we also had like inside halls and displays where we curated and featured independence, like passionate creators in whatever it is they're making. I don't care if they're cobblers or doing jeans, whatever the hell it is, but a way to bring the audience that wants to learn about that to an event space where we could really make, ideally, someone who comes to that is stoked because they've never heard of 90% of these small creators and brands. So I pitched that to my friend at Haggerty Insurance, and Haggerty is sponsoring it. We're doing it in the fall, it's looking like September, to support Go Campaign. We're going to have live open bar, live music, killer food trucks, and everything from entry level cheap stuff to batshit stuff, but all made with the same passion. And I'm super excited to produce that event and have Haggerty support. And I think it will quickly become an event series that could easily become year-round regional. But it's certainly going to be an annual experience, and hopefully raise a
You
lot of
know,
visibility and money for Go and bring light upon all the great independent craftsmen out there that all these new algorithmic games, it's getting harder and harder for, I think, a lot of these independents to get eyes
do you,
on.
do you know when in September?
We're still booking it out and we're dodging Jewish holidays and other holidays. I think we just settled on Saturday. I think we are looking at Saturday the 2nd.
Ah,
It's up in the air though, because I'm a little worried about the holiday. I'm worried about, what is it, Rosh
back
Hashanah. So
back to school,
yeah,
Labor
exactly. Well,
Day.
back to
Yeah.
school's cool because it'll be a weekend, and then at least I know everyone's back
Oh,
in
true.
town. But it'll,
Yeah.
it'll definitely be pre-holiday, post
And
Pebble
that's in
Beach.
Santa Monica as well?
No, it's going to be at the new Haggerty like car collection mixed use facility they just opened up. That's gorgeous in Van Nuys in the Valley.
Cool.
That's what something that so Art, before I get off topic, that's gocampaign.org, right?
Yes, sir.
Um and I don't know how this works, but I've seen people do it recently where they want to sell something and instead of selling it outright, they'll be like, "Here, we're going to sell tickets for this at $100 and then auction it off once we hit this many." Could you do that with one of your cars with like how many followers you have and everything else? It's like $200 a ticket. If we sell X amount of tickets, we're going to sell this car off and make more money than you would be to selling to like an independent consumer.
Probably. I've seen
Or
some.
are there weird like sweepstakes tax laws? I hope you know that there's
That's
somebody creeping around outside your window too, that you're not coming to
probably
get
one
like
of our
attacked.
neighborhood crackheads who literally like will pitch a tent in the bush outside my door, and then call the councilman or the cops, and the cops are friends. They're all car guys. The girls, yep, that's one of our lovely neighborhood crackheads.
Just looking out for you.
Hold on,
Um,
this is shop policy. Can someone quickly go outside right in front of my office? We have a pineapple smoking crack in the bushes. Man, this town. But we give them debit cards, and we don't patrol, we don't enforce, we don't provide training, psychology, drug programs. We just give them debit cards. And like literally, there was a dude with a line selling drugs out of an RV, like a roach coach, right in front of our shop. And like, and I paid
Jeez.
50 grand a month in rent. Like really? And the city's
it's
like, yeah.
insane. That's
Anyway,
like
I
even
digress.
yeah.
So I think there's some serious legal parameters around doing
Yeah.
that get quite sticky.
That's what
There's
I was
also an
thinking.
issue. I've seen smaller builders that have good followings, but they're more like five-man shops, like family shops, that do that business structure. And I think it's a little off color. Sometimes
Yeah.
people get butthurt. I have done that though by partnering with Bring a Trailer, and that's worked great.
Oh
Like
yeah,
we
yeah,
did
yeah.
a first edition special kick-ass Bronco, and we sold it on Bring a Trailer, and a percentage of the proceeds went to the charity, and it kicked ass.
Bring a trailer is pretty legit though. Like it's
They are,
I've
and then that's also a legal boundary where, um, and my wife's such a bulldog. She's out there telling the lady what for. I hope someone's out there with Jamie. I don't want her out there by herself. There's a bunch of people out here, Jonathan. Good.
Beautiful LA.
I mean, honestly, man, it's out of
I
we got
think they're
control.
we
coming
got
up from I think they're coming down from San Francisco. That's the
Oh
problem.
man, I was just up in the Bay. It's it's the
It's
Wild
bad.
West.
It's
It's
bad.
crazy.
Um
What happened to
yeah.
accountability?
I don't know.
Like,
yeah.
I honestly
Uh,
though, I feel for a lot of that community. I don't mean to sound bitter and heartless as I might, but I think the second the federal government took no responsibility for mental health, that that's the root of this problem.
that's
Obviously
it.
drugs, but the mental health is such a large component, and if a state actually masters it, they're going to go bankrupt because the entire country will tilt. Right now, it's tilting, and people are sending their homeless here because they can just walk into a store and steal what they want, and there's no enforcement. They can pitch a tent or park an RV wherever they want, and there's no enforcement, and they get free money for nothing. But if we actually started fixing the problem, any state would go bankrupt because it's got to be federal. It's so staggering. It's so sad.
It is. It's I mean that's an entire podcast discussion, but I was just having that conversation with my buddy yesterday where it's like we have our youngest daughter in
That was a very
just
unique
talk.
moment in our live podcast on film. It's like, I hope you're aware there's someone.
She was peeing, she said. She had a knife in her hand, not
Okay.
a lighter.
She
Her
was
name is Tess.
peeing here. She went over here and she was typing up.
She said, I'm not smoking. I said, then what's in your hand? She goes, a knife. And I said,
Much
yet.
better. You
name is-
accidentally use a knife when peeing?
Her name is Tess.
May want to look into that.
Brittany went to school with her. Brittany knows quite a few of them.
Our office manager has personal history with some of these
They
people
went
who
to high school.
had
It's
sideways
sad.
life. It's sad. It's a serious problem in that country.
Yeah,
It is, but it's like we have my youngest daughter in talk therapy, and my wife has good health insurance, and the deductible that we have to hit before talk therapy or any sort of mental counseling gets paid for by our insurance is fucking insane.
I
And
bet.
it's like so nobody will pay for anything like that.
Yeah.
It's just, I mean, it's a massive problem,
We got
which
some
I think,
problems to fix.
yeah, which is an entire, well, probably more than one podcast, but
Shit, that's a lifetime.
yeah, a lot has happened in almost 2.5 years since we spoke to you.
Crazy changes. Wild, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm glad that your wife's cancer's at bay. I'm sorry that she broke her back, but that's what you guys get for taking a vacation.
Right?
You know,
What
that's
a
self-inflicted.
Well, I'm glad you guys have kept your great energy. It's lovely to spend time with you two boys again.
For sure.
And,
Yeah, well, we definitely appreciate your time, and we can get the information for Go Campaign, and then anything else if it's that you want us to basically put out with this podcast, we can get that out in the show notes. So just let us know.
Sweet. I think it'd be fun too if anyone's a creator making something unique and wants to apply to be an exhibitor. You know,
That I think that would be. I mean, we definitely have a ton of people that listen that are in that space. So you get us the information, and we'll share it
okay,
for
perfect.
sure.
I'll talk to admin at the charity today, and I think it's actually a good idea. We should set up a specific email address for those inquiries. Should we do
Okay.
a little? Should we do on tape a little call out pimping?
Yeah, for sure.
All
Go
right.
ahead. Yeah.
So if you are a visionary in your field and you're making cool stuff, and you want eyes on and you want to support a great charity that's making a significant impact in the lives of children within your community and communities around the world, please join Haggerty and Icon. And we're going to have this great event. We're going to have a carefully curated collection of creators and designers and feature their product for sale on site. Percentage of the product sold will go directly to the charity, but it's a great way to expand your reach and get tons of media and meet lovely people for a great cause. So send in some info about yourself and your product to the email provided, and we would love to review the opportunity.
Yeah, so we'll get an email to put on file for that. You guys can send that email in directly,
Okay.
and reach out. So that'll work out perfectly.
Sweet.
Yeah, man. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you,
Yeah,
guys.
Jonathan. Good.
We
good to see you,
appreciate it.
man.
Hope you stay safe out there.
I just want to go home in the backyard and fucking chill. See you guys.
Later, man. We'll chat soon.
Bye.
I mean, he's exactly, an artist.
Yeah,
it's
and like I know he sees it. I know that he sees it. It's just he's like bound by all the constraints when you're trying to produce art and have a business. They just like it's so hard.
And I think that, like for me, right? It's like as he's talking about only using the best and this and that, it's like I'm thinking about our spec, and I'm like, we're gonna build the best, and then it's like, well, I only have a finite amount of money to invest in this, so it's like I have to make these like compromising decisions, and I'm like, like he makes me want to just say screw it and figure it out, but it's like, how do I do that and balance it? And and at the end of the day, like, yeah, maybe it's not the best business decision he's made all along the way, but looking where he is now with a 4-year backlog, it's like he's done pretty well.
Yeah.
And I think what he said, he nailed it, is he has brand equity. So with brand equity, I think that's the best thing you can take away from this podcast. With brand equity, you have the autonomy to kind of decide whether, how you're going to scale your business. And
Yeah, for
and
sure.
that's exactly what he's done.
Yep, it's I like having him on. I listened to a bunch of the original conversation with him. Um I really enjoyed that. I really enjoyed today's conversation. I love his demeanor. I love how raw he is. I kind of like how much of a curmudgeon he is with certain things. I feel like he's cut from the same cloth as myself, but it was a fun one. We got to get him back on again.
Totally. Once he
Cool. Well,
cleans once he cleans up that backyard.
yeah, for sure. But thanks to everyone for listening as always. Hop online, give us some reviews, spread the word. Love seeing everything going out on Instagram. Um, Appreciate all the feedback, all the support. Thank you to our partners, our vendors, sponsors, everyone, all the listeners, everyone who makes this happen.
And of course, Motif for doing the production.
Motif, Doug. I consider him a partner.
Fair. See you guys next week.